here we are in the season of autumn. The organs associated with the season are the lungs and the large intestine, both of which are considered organs of elimination. So we'll do a quick practice today focusing on that. Oftentimes people get ill this time of year. It's a challenging transition of the season to go through. We're coming out of the joy and the fun, the warm temperatures of summertime, the long days, and moving now into what's considered yang yin. So really important time of year to make sure you're keeping the body warm. We don't always think about these things. The body has to go through this change and adaptation from, again, for most of us, the warmer time in the summer and entering into the darker, cooler season of autumn and winter. So really important to take care of the lungs, take care of the body so that we can avoid those upper respiratory infections. So we want to keep the lungs clear and warm. So let's get started. Okay, let's just go ahead and rub the hands, creating a little bit of fire. So we know that the standing meditations are very powerful ways to build qi. For today's standing meditation, we are actually going to focus on the lungs. So with those energized hands, we're going to come to this position here. The upper arms are resting against the rib cage. There's a curve, a slight curve to the wrist and the hands and the fingers. So I'm creating this sort of protective, energetic space for the lungs. Notice the position of the spine. The tailbone is pointing down. You can squeeze the gluteal muscles briefly, opening up the front of the body and sort of finding that position. And then, of course, relaxing everything. Chest is relaxed. Chin is gently drawn in. Shoulders are down. And if you'd like to close your eyes or at least soften the gaze. And we will put our intention into the organs of the lungs. And if you decide you want to do a little research, that's a good thing to get refamiliarized with the workings of the lungs, the branches, all of the spaces. And when we breathe in and out of the nostrils, the mouth gently closed, the jaw relaxed, the facial muscles relaxed. So a light little smile on the face, relaxing the brow, the muscles around the mouth. Shoulders are down. And notice where the weight is distributed on the bottoms of the feet. Lift the toes briefly and allow the feet to relax completely on the floor. And focus on your breath. The belly is nice and relaxed, expansive. So as we inhale and the diaphragm drops down, it has more room, which allows us to bring more oxygen into the lower part of the lungs. And this gives us approximately another 20% of oxygen in the body and the brain, which uses a lot of oxygen. So feel that gentle expansion. You're, of course, going to feel some movement in the upper chest, but primarily we want the breath down here. So we're sort of creating or cradling the lung energy here, creating a protective space. And just think about breathing into that space. Always we have that little bend in the knees so that the legs are not locked. Gradually the breath becomes longer, more full, smooth. And remembering that the arms are resting on the body. So this is not work out here. We're nice and relaxed. Again, the shoulders are low. The tongue on the upper palate. So the front portion of the tongue just floating up and finding the upper palate like a helium balloon floats up to the ceiling if it's untethered. And we relax the base of the tongue as well. Making sure the fingers stay relaxed. Sometimes wiggling them is a good little reminder. The spinal column nice and long. Hanging like a string of beads from the base of the skull down through the tailbone. So we put our intention in the lungs, and that's where the energy goes. The color associated with the organs and the season is white. So you can even envision perhaps a white light infusing the lungs as you inhale, and even envisioning any stagnant energy going out or being eliminated with the exhale. We become quiet with the self. And allow the body's energy to circulate within the body. You can also do this in a seated position. And this is wonderful, especially if you're feeling some congestion begin in the lungs, or if you're dealing with upper respiratory issues. Hold this pose for as long as is comfortable. And then we'll allow the arms to cross over the chest, and we'll move right into a Qigong form called opening two worlds. The world of the internal lungs and the outer world where we get our life force of oxygen. So I'm going to back up here. Adjusting your stance maybe a little bit wider. We're going to be moving up and down with the legs here. We begin in this position. It doesn't matter too much which hand is against the body. We start with the gaze slightly downward, remembering that we keep the shoulders relaxed. We have that little bend in the knees. And we begin by lifting the forearms to somewhat parallel. But notice I'm not lifting my shoulders. That would look like this, and that's blocking the energy. So again, from this downward position, we begin with an inhale, sort of like a waking up. The gaze is upward. We open the throat as a form of vulnerability before we move into the pose itself. The arms continue upward, the hands separating. Notice that my gaze is above the hands. And then as the hands get out of the way, the gaze comes forward. I sink in the legs to whatever degree is comfortable for you. You can be up a little bit higher or down lower. And then the arms come out straight. And then we release, come up on the legs, the arms float up and cross once again and come back to that starting position with the head downward. So again, the inhale as we lift, sort of like a waking up. The gaze stays upward, the palms rotate out, you're clearing the space, gaze comes to the horizon, and we extend the arms out, quite straight. And again, you can adjust the feet as needed, making sure that tailbone is pointing downward, shoulders are down, we're not lifting out, puffing out the chest. The chest is relaxed, the energy going down to our center. And then we release. Notice the arms and the hands relax. We come up on the legs and return home. Again, the breath pattern is a big, long inhale. Exhale as we start to sink. And if your breath isn't that long yet, don't worry about it. Just breathe however you are able to. It's more important to learn the form. And then that release coming up. Inhale as you're doing that, and then exhale as the arms land back down on the body. Inhale. Exhale. You're pushing against a wall with either hand. Sinking, tucking that tailbone, bringing the weight into the back. So not leaning forward on the balls of the feet, but also on the heels. Blink, and that's our signal to go from yang to yin, resting the shoulders and the chest downward. Now another detail here, when we start, the hands, I'm going to come a little bit closer here so you can see. The hands come alive. As I said, it's sort of like a waking up, and we're lifting with the forearms as though we're lifting something heavy. But again, my shoulders stay nice and low. The gaze comes up, palms rotate out, sink into the yin field. That's our foundation for this powerful stance. Release, come up, and just let the arms float down and land on the chest. Gaze down, opening two worlds. Inhale, drawing the life force into the lungs. Exhale as we release and come into this powerful pose. So again, this is our yang position. And the blink is, again, our signal to release and return. Inhale, long, slow. Exhale. The gaze becomes a little more deliberate here, and then the blink. Everything softens, gathering back into the body, the lungs. So we touch that vulnerability before we come into the power of the stance. So that creates the balance. Coming back up on the legs. The breath is quiet, no effort, right? If we're making a lot of noise, then that means that we are working. Good. We'll do one more. opening two worlds. The inner and the outer. Exhaling all the air out. There might be a second or two of transition between the inhales and the exhales. Good. And just pause. Gratitude for the lungs and the large intestine. And releasing the arms down, bringing the feet together. Thank you for this brief practice that we've shared together, and remembering the lung stance for congestion, dealing with that, or preventive medicine, keeping the lungs nice and clear. Enjoy.